Have you ever hit your intermediate language learning plateau? I hit this infamous plateau 2 years ago and I felt like I hit a brick wall and I was not learning anything. I want to share this experience with you because it was actually one of the most toughest parts of my Spanish learning journey. As well, I know many other Spanish learners are going through this as well, so I want to let you know that you are not alone. One of the most surprising things about this plateau is that I actually hit it soon after I made the decision that I was going to be a fluent Spanish speaker, and that was in 2019, and I hit this plateau in the middle of 2020. In 2019, I graduated college and I passed my Spanish classes, but at this time, I was really just dabbling with the language and I wasn't really focused. But then in the middle of 2020 is when I actually got really focused and got really dedicated to learning the Spanish language. And one of the early signs of my plateau was when I bought this book called La Sombra del Viento in early 2020. And when I bought this book, I thought it was extremely challenging and I actually got really bored of reading it. And this was really strange because I love to read, and also I was reading constantly during college. That's basically all I focused on, was reading and writing. So I thought my reading comprehension skills were extremely high. But when I started to read this book, it seemed like none of those skills actually mattered. And then I ended up just getting really frustrated and then actually returning the book soon after I bought it. Soon after this failed attempt to read a book in Spanish, I actually got really focused on studying Spanish to the point where I was studying every single day and I was getting very obsessive with the process of learning a language. I used as many language learning study methods as possible so I could become fluent in Spanish and to be able to comprehend as much as possible. So one of those methods was reading. So I read my first book, which is called El Épico Fracaso de Arturo Zamora. And then I was also reading a decent amount of news articles as well in Spanish. I was watching Netflix TV shows and movies, even though I didn't really understand a lot, maybe about 50% of what I was consuming. As well, I went to a few different Latin restaurants and ordered for the first time in Spanish while being within my country and not just when I was traveling, like when I was in Mexico. And then I was also talking with one of my Venezuelan friends who spoke Spanish, and he was mostly the only Spanish speaker that I was talking to in person at this time. I would even experiment with different Latin American dishes, and then I would actually publish a photo of what I just made on helloTalk. And then helloTalk was also an application that I used a lot during my intermediate plateau. And I would have a lot of communication with Spanish speakers on this application. So texting them, sending voice recordings, also having calls. And some other methods I tried: writing, so I was journaling a lot. I was listening to podcasts in Spanish. I was listening to Spanish music, and I was also thinking in Spanish. And then watching YouTube, and then also studying flashcards. So I was doing all of these things, but I still realized that my progress was slowing somehow. For me, I knew I hit this intermediate plateau because there was no way that I was not progressing really fast if I was putting in so much time and then also using so many different strategies to learn Spanish. I was even logging the amount of hours that I was studying because I wanted to make sure that I was putting in enough time to actually become fluent in Spanish, and then also to be able to comprehend Spanish speakers. I knew I wasn't increasing my listening comprehension skills because I would watch one episode of El Dragón or El Señor de los Cielos on Netflix like maybe 3 times, and I would do that multiple times during the week, but I could not understand more than I could the first time that I watched it. And I'm sure you can imagine the amount of frustration I had when I was not advancing these listening skills, because no matter how many times I would listen to it over again, it seemed like I was just staying in the same exact spot. And that was going to be very challenging for me to accept because you need to be able to listen and comprehend Spanish speakers in a conversation. I attempted to develop a Mexican accent through all of the telenovelas that I was watching, but I failed at that as well. And that was pretty frustrating too because I was watching so many hours of telenovelas, and I was even writing down sentences as well. Then I tried to read them off with a Mexican accent. So just no matter what, I could not imitate a Mexican accent, and I definitely could not speak Spanish as fast as they could either. And my Spanish speaking skills weren't the best, but at least I was trying to better them by recording myself and then also having those conversations on helloTalk. And right now, I'm going to show you a little clip of how I sounded back then.
Hola, ¿qué tal todos? Buenas tardes. Hoy yo tengo un nuevo video sobre mis vacaciones en Guadalajara, México, en el estado de Jalisco, que yo tuve hace un año, en el junio específicamente, y yo estaba hablando de lo que pasó cuando, cuando llegué al aeropuerto y obviamente no fue una muy buena experiencia, pero al mismo tiempo yo...
This is one method that I use to track my speaking progress, and I did not like the way that I sounded at all in neither the different words and phrases that I was using, because I used to write down a lot of different new words that I would hear from my language exchange partners on helloTalk, but for whatever reason, I just could not use them in a sentence when I was speaking. The one Spanish word that I was really good at using and I could not even stop using was para. So para llevar, para tomar, para llegar, etc. y etc. But the thing was, I did not like using this word so much because I could not use actual other different verbs with different conjugations. And that was stressing me out as well, then also destroying my motivation because I couldn't use a lot of complex vocabulary. And then my confidence in my Spanish speaking abilities decreased even more so because now with the helloTalk application, I could see exactly what my language exchange partner was correcting. And I was making a ton of grammar mistakes. Now, at this point in time, I thought I reached a level that was high enough where I wouldn't be making so simple of mistakes. So I started to study a lot harder and then also a lot longer. But what eventually happened was me getting even more exhausted and then also losing a lot more motivation because no matter how much I studied and no matter how hard I studied, I was not improving my skills. So for the first time in my Spanish learning journey, I burnt out. And I can assure you that this was not a fun experience at all. And I even stopped putting the specific study method next to the amount of hours that I was studying. And I didn't do that for a whole month, for the whole month of November. I kept asking myself over and over again, why is this happening to me? How come I'm not fluent in Spanish yet? How come I can't understand 100% of what a Spanish speaker is saying to me through helloTalk? Or how come I can't understand 100% of what the different characters are saying on these movies and TV shows? I wasn't in my college classes anymore and I wasn't following a rigid syllabus, but I had my own study plan. I was studying whenever I wanted. How come I hit this intermediate plateau and I had no idea how to get out? Also, I love the Spanish language, so why was I getting very exhausted and why was I being very demotivated to study it? I think the answers for these questions are better suited for a future video. If you think my videos are valuable, you can donate to my Buy Me a Coffee page and you can find the link in the description box of this video. Thank you for watching this video and for your support. Make sure that you like the video and tap or click on the screen to watch more videos about my language learning experience.